Today's topic is the joy we experience after COVID-19 ends is what today's holiday is all about. This is the first class I'm giving after, thank God, Facebook allowed me back on. So here we are, and I hope you enjoy today's class. So if I ask you, what is the greatest holiday on the Jewish calendar? The greatest one. So automatically, holidays like Passover come to mind, Rosh Hashanah maybe, the high holidays. There's a lot of Purim maybe. There's a lot of holidays that come to mind that could be classified and fall under the category of the greatest Jewish holiday. And yet, we find that the Talmud says, and I'm going to share the screen to show you, Lo hayu yamim tovim leIsrael ke-15 b'Av yom HaKippurim. Tonight is the greatest Jewish holiday on the calendar. Tonight, which is Tu B'Av, which is the 15th day of Av, is the greatest Jewish holiday on the calendar, equivalent to Yom Kippur. Now, I understand, says the Talmud, why Yom Kippur is a great and wonderful and incredible holiday, but why is Tu B'Av a great holiday? In fact, what do we do in Tu B'Av? Tu B'Av is tonight. Tonight, the only thing we do is we shorten our prayers. We don't say Tachanun. But why is it such a great, wonderful, joyous, incredible holiday? So let's see a talk of the Rabbi in 1987 on 15 B'Av. Here's what the Rabbi says. Lo hayu yamim tovim leIsrael ke-15 B'Av Yom HaKippurim. It's the screen in front of you. There weren't greater holidays than 15 B'Av and Yom HaKippurim. This is from the Talmud Tractate Ta'anit. Umevi Admur Rashab b'ma'amaro mever inyan 15 B'Av. The Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitch Rebbe, explains that it says, and let me just explain before this, that the first time there was Tu B'Av was the generation that the Jewish people left Egypt. You see, the original plan was that the Jewish people should be in Egypt, they leave Egypt, they accept the Torah, and then straight away they go into Israel. But the Jews sent spies to spy out the land, and they came back with a disfavorable report about Israel, about the land of Israel, and they convinced all the Jewish people that it's too difficult to conquer Israel. The night the spies came back, the night that the spies told the Jewish people, we cannot go into Israel, and all the Jews cried, that was the night of Tisha B'Av. And God said, oh, you cried for nothing, I'll give you what to cry for. And that was the first Tisha B'Av in history. And that's why a lot of the problems of the Jewish people, for example, World War I started Tisha B'Av. Spanish Inquisition, we were expelled from Spain, Tisha B'Av. The Jewish people were massacred in Beitar, Tisha B'Av, and other events. Now, what happened was, that generation of the desert, the Jewish people, was decreed upon them that they should all die in the desert. So every year on Tisha B'Av, the Jews would dig a grave for themselves in the desert. They would go to sleep on Tisha B'Av, and in the morning, all the Jews would wake up minus 15,000. 15,000 Jews every single year would die on Tisha B'Av. And this happened every year. So year number one, year number two, 40 years times 15,000 is 600,000. 600,000 was the amount of Jews that were alive then, and God decreed upon these 600,000 Jews that they should die. Now, what happened is, Tu B'Av, in the 40th year, which is the 15th of Av. So what happened is the Jews dug their graves, those 15,000 Jews dug their graves on Tisha B'Av like every year, but instead of dying, the next morning they woke up. So they thought they miscalculated the dates. So the next night they did it again on the 10th of Av. They woke up again in the morning, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, until on the 15th of Av, they realized that there's no way they miscalculated it. And they realized that the decree is absolved and now nobody's going to die anymore. So that was the first Tu B'Av, which was a happy, incredibly joyous day in history. There were other events such as the crazy, terrible, tragic story of Pilegesh Begiva, where the Jewish people got into a civil war between the tribes and Binyamin was allowed to remarry. There were other things concerning the temple and the wood, which I'm not going to get into now. However, in a talk that the Rebbe gives, which is right in front of you, the Rebbe explains what's the source of the Simcha and Tu B'Av, and it's an incredible lesson. Here's what the Rebbe says. The Isa B'Pri Eitz Chaim, it says in Pri Eitz Chaim, Shayom Tev the Tu B'Av u'shazu shleimut milui halavana. You want to know why Tu B'Av is so joyous? Because on the 15th of Av, the moon shines in all its glory. It's a full moon. That is the reason why tonight is the greatest Jewish holiday on the calendar. Greater than Purim, greater than Passover, than Rosh Hashanah, than Sukkot, than any other holiday. Because the moon shines in all its glory. Question is, and I'll read it outside, but you could look at it inside. The question is, so if so, why is the 15th of Av greater than any other 15th of any month? There's 12 months in the calendar. And not only that, but the 15th of Nisan is the day Pesach starts. The 15th of Tishrei is the day Sukkot starts. Why is the 15th of Av greater than that? And here's one of the most beautiful explanations which sheds light on our coronavirus pandemic time period. And here's what the Rabbi writes. You see, when you have a great joy which follows after a dark, turbulent time, the joy is so much greater. You see, Tu B'Av is the only month that follows the darkest period in the Jewish calendar. The 9 days, the 3 weeks, Tisha B'Av is a fast day. These are dark, turbulent times, sad times. And after these sad times, you have Tu B'Av, which is a full moon, which is an eminent light shining from God, a light of happiness. Our joy is so much greater. You see, a person who's thirsty in the desert appreciates water much more than a person who's at home and he's just thirsty. Because when you don't have something and then you get it, you appreciate it. When you have this dark, turbulent time which we live in now, which is the coronavirus pandemic, and this era of uncertainty, it's like the year of I don't know. Ask anybody, what are you doing? I don't know. Where are your kids going? I don't know. What are you doing? Come September, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But God willing, this era is going to end soon, and hopefully tonight, because tonight is the greatest Jewish holiday. There's a light shining from this full moon. Can you imagine how much we're going to appreciate, how much joy and light we will appreciate going to school, going to work? We'll appreciate these things so much more because they come after a dark and turbulent time. Stories told of, there's a great and famous sage called the Rashash. He was one of the sponsors of the Vilna Shas. He lived in Vilna. He was a wealthy man as well as a Talmud scholar. And he's quoted in the Talmud as a commentary many, many times. So the Rashash, one of the things he used to do was he used to give out loans for free. It's a mitzvah in the Torah to give out loans without interest. So he used to lend people money. And one time he lent to the local baker, a poor man, a simple man, a good man. He lent him money. And this guy, this tailor, came to repay the loan whenever he was supposed to. And when he came to repay the loan, the Rashash, the rabbi, the great rabbi, was studying Torah with his Talmud. So the baker gave him the money, the repayment of the loan, however much it was, and the Rashash acknowledged him, and he put the paper in the money, like in the Talmud, on the page of the Talmud that he was learning. And the Rashash was so engrossed in his learning that when he finished, he shut the Talmud, and he went on to his affairs, and he forgot that the guy repaid him his loan. But about a month later, when he's looking at his ledger and his books, and he sees who owes him still money, he realizes that the local baker still hasn't paid him back money. So he called the baker. He said, where's the money that you owe? He said, I paid you back. He said, you never. He kept on asking him to repay the loan, and the baker, who was poor, insisted he paid it back. Eventually, the Rashash didn't have a choice. He took him to the local Din Torah, to the local rabbinic court, to judge. And basically, it was the Rashash's words against the baker's words, and the baker had no proof that he repaid the loan. He admitted that he took the money, they lent the money, but he had no proof that he paid it back. So the rabbis sided with the Rashash, with the famous rabbi. So the baker had to repay this money. But not only that, people stopped going to his shop, to his store, because they felt, how dare he have the audacity to refute the words of the Rashash? So this kind of drove him out of town. This kind of put him into dark, turbulent times. It was so difficult for him. He reached a period where his Parnasah, his livelihood, was uncertain. He was shunned. People looked at him like with a nasty eye. He was pretty much excommunicated from the community. About a year after this, the Rashash happened to learn the same tractate in the Talmud that he had opened then, and he looks, and suddenly a bunch of money, a bunch of rubles comes out of this page that he was learning. And right away, he realized where this money's from. He remembered that a year before, he was studying the same page in the Talmud, and that poor baker came and he repaid him, and he took him to the rabbi to din Torah for no reason. The baker was right and he was wrong, and he thinks, oh my God, how will I make amends right now? So he quickly does research, figures out where the baker lives, and he travels to him immediately. He goes to the baker, takes him a couple of days to get there. And when he comes to the baker, he says, listen, my friend, I apologize profusely. I am so sorry. I realized that you were right the whole entire time and I was wrong. So the baker says, I accept your apology, but it doesn't help me. I was driven out of town. Nobody believed me. So the Rashash says, you know what? This Shabbat, come to my synagogue and I will make a public announcement, a public apology. I will say that you were right and I was wrong. So the baker says, that's not going to help, because people will think you're only making the apology because you feel bad for me, but you don't really mean it. They still, my name is gone for life. So the Rashash thinks, and he says, okay, I have an idea. He says, you have a son who's a great guy, and I have a daughter. Let's make a match. Let your son marry my daughter. Let's make a big wedding in the local town. I will pay for everything. And when people in the town and the community realize that I not only do I make a public apology, but I take your son in marriage with my daughter, they will realize that you were right and I was wrong. And the poor baker can't believe his luck. He cannot believe that the Rashash is offering his son, the Rashash's daughter. The Rashash is a brilliant man. There's no way in normal times his daughter, he would agree to let his daughter marry this poor, simple baker. But that is exactly what happens. They make the most incredible, beautiful, joyous wedding, and everybody is so happy. And the baker realizes that he had to go through this yeridah, through this going down, through this trial and tribulation of being shunned and going out of town, but he realizes it was all worth it because he was able to receive the incredible daughter-in-law. His son was able to marry this incredible prized girl who, without this circumstance, would have never, ever married him. You see, this is the holiday of Tu B'Av. The fact that the moon is shining in all its glory, it's a holiday like none other. It says in the Talmud, this is the most joyous holiday in the entire book, in the entire calendar, because the moon is shining. But why is it so joyous specifically on the 15th of Av? Because it comes after this Yeridah, this going down, this Tisha B'Av, this darkness, this gloom. And when you have light after gloom, it's such a joyous day indeed. And that is exactly what's going to happen when COVID-19 ends. We're going to be so happy and so inspired. I hope you all enjoy this wonderful, beautiful holiday. Have a good evening.